It was 2009, towards the end of when we were finishing Dragon Age Origins, when myself, Matt Goldman, and Mike Layla started to get together on a weekly basis to talk about the directions we wanted to take the franchise, and the things we wanted to explore if we had a chance to do so.
We built a kind of a cartoon animatic of what we would like to be in the game. If we were going to really pull out the stops and do whatever we wanted, it's actually very much like the beginning of the game. There's a conversation wheel, there's a dragon airstrike, you're a cool, badass warrior with spiky armor chopping Murlocs in half by the millions.
It was exciting. It was like, wow, man, can we actually pull that off? Can we feel like the party works together to demolish foes rather than having their disparate abilities?
So brainstorming with the core leads on Dragon Age is pretty exhilarating.
I really love to lead him astray with crazy ideas. Every time we would talk, I'd start talking about how every piece of our art would involve Ulrich von Hawke, the lycanthrope character of our game, howling and like tasting his own blood. Anyways, it kind of got out of control after a while, so I had to drop it. But it was pretty fun while it lasted.
You know, the final beautiful touch of it was when we said, what if we could tell a story that was more personal? And that's where the idea of Hawke, the champion of Kirkwall, and that rise to power over a decade of history came out. Where Origins really shone by having this huge epilogue that had thousands of variations based on the choices you've made. Instead, we've moved that into the gameplay. People you've interacted with at the beginning of the game are going to have their kind of situations profoundly affected by their interaction with Hawke, your character.
If getting the relic gets Castillon off your back, then I'll help you retrieve it.
There might be something I could do for you, if you're looking for company later.
You re-interact with them, you see how that worked out. So we believe it may be our most reactive game to date.
So here we were, we finished these brainstorming sessions. There's a lot of stuff on the whiteboards. There's a lot of pie-in-the-sky ideas. And then Dragon Age Origins came out, and it beat all of our expectations. Perfect scores, the VGA awards.
We also had a bunch of meta reviews, you know, comments coming in about Origins, and what really resonated for me was this resounding theme that Origins was an amazing story-based classical RPG, but that there were elements of it that seemed to be dragging.
If you're telling a dark fantasy, you don't want combat to feel like you're playing a chess game with a friend.
So that seemed to be the reviews. No one was really panning the game to me. It let you have this cool tactical experience, and obviously the story was intense, you know, well loved. But the question for me was, is there any way that we could just take the RPG concepts, the very core tenets of it, and move it forward into a newer feel, something that would work as well on the consoles as it did on PC?
We've really stuck to our vision. We've kept what was good about Origins and shaved off the edges and made something really unique.
Matt wanted much more composed imagery, places that played up the character. I wanted combat that felt like it wasn't silently rolling dice behind the scenes, that felt like when I was pushing a button, it was responding and my characters were responding accordingly. But because it looks faster, because it's got a character with a voice, because of this historical story we're going to do, it ran the risk of people saying, oh my God, that is so different. I'm not sure it's for me. And we knew that would be a potential problem. But at the same time, we also knew that the game we were designing was not one that would actually alienate them. So what we've been very open with is letting people go hands-on. And the big thing we saw is that people, even people who loved Origins, people who came wearing armor from Origins, were playing the game and going, oh wow, I see what you did here. It's almost hard to communicate how much this game still feels like Origins, despite feeling completely different.
We're trying to make a game that we would love to play.
We have the best in the biz running their teams and working really hard together to make this thing come true.
Even when Origins was nearing completion, we had already started thinking about Dragon Age 2. We'd already begun sharpening that axe. So the moment they took the blinders off and said, okay, go. We knew exactly what we were making. We knew the exact vision we were trying to bring to the player. Dragon Age 2 is going to be about consequence. It's a game about making hard decisions.
As we talked about the plot for Dragon Age 2, it really came down to two potential stories. One, which felt a lot like Dragon Age Origins, and the second, which delved into a lot more about the actual lore and history of Dragon Age 2. The second option was the tougher option to tell. But we felt that Dragon Age needed to explore some different directions and some different ways to tell story.
Hawke, the man or woman that the player steps into the shoes of, is a refugee, someone who escaped the Blight and spawned a legend.
Hawke is going to be a different character based on the actual dialogue options you pick. And that was a lot of fun trying to come up with the good guy character who's going to sacrifice himself to do the right thing for others, and the much more aggressive, I'm going to, do whatever it takes kind of character. And of course it wouldn't be Dragon Age without the snarky, sarcastic humor.
She fills her days making poisons. And cake. Tell me you didn't try the cake.
How did he rise to power? How did he become the champion of Kirkwall? What's brought the city and later the entire world to the brink of war? These are questions that need to be answered.
It's like one of those moments in history where people will talk about for centuries afterwards that I knew someone was there, or read stories about the people who were there. So the player gets to be there at that pivotal moment.
So we got together to talk about ways we could do this, the way we could tell a decade worth of history in a single game. And out of those explorations, that's where the frame narrative came from.
A story within a story became key. This is a technique you see in The Usual Suspects, you see it in Princess Bride.
It's being told from the perspective of a character named Varric. He's a dwarven rogue storyteller.
I've had gentler invitations.
Varric knew the player, and he's telling the story to Cassandra, who is a Templar investigator who's trying to figure out what happened.
Time to start talking, dwarf. They tell me you're good at it.
But he doesn't always tell the truth. Sometimes he begins telling the legend, the story that everybody knows about this character, Hawke, that was larger than life.
Bullshit. That's not what really happened.
When a book or a movie does a frame narrative, the narrator knows how things are going to turn out. But in a video game, we can't know that, because the way you choose to play is going to affect the narration. And what's so very cool about this is, while we can't really take credit for frame narrative, it's been used for hundreds of years, I think this may be one of the truly interactive frame narratives.
Thus began the champion's first year in Kirkwall, settling his debts with the mercenaries. That's when I first met the champion.
In Dragon Age Origins, you traveled across the land, but in Dragon Age 2, you're traveling through time. We're focused on a more specific area. You see it over time. You see it evolve. You see it change. This, I think, gives it more depth.
Relationships can develop over a period of years rather than just weeks or months.
Been a while, hasn't it?
I've been keeping an eye on you.
On one hand, an adventure tale isn't necessarily about romance, but on the other hand, what adventure tale, what science fiction or fantasy tale have you ever seen that didn't have some element of romance?
Wait, you're not thinking of bringing feelings into this, are you?
And we were able to take them in some pretty wildly different directions, from virginal girl next door to crazy up against the wall, let's have it on right here.
And one angle that we haven't really targeted before is the sense of family. The sense that Hawke is not some character who just washed up on a beach with no history, nothing to back him up. He's got a mother, he's got siblings, and they come with him. Will we see rivalry? Yes. Will we see jealousy? Yes. Will we see genuine affection? Yes.
We're running from your bloody Templars.
I'm in charge. You do what I say.
Right, brother.
So it's obvious, well, if I'm going to become the champion of Kirkwall, why bother playing? Well, the question is, what is a champion of Kirkwall? Is there a political significance? Do I command an army? Have I got some sort of superpower that no one's told me about? And in a lot of ways, how you choose to play will help define that.
It would have been very easy for us after Origins to sit on our laurels and just do what was already successful and not try anything new. But I think the thing that BioWare does that's great is we're always interested in evolution.